Hey guys, Will Terry here, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about the big myth in children's book publishing. Before I get going on that, a little housekeeping. This is video number 18 in a series that I've been producing for a playlist called How I'm Going to Make $50,000 on My Next Self-Published Children's Book. This is the paperback version, and a little update. The hardcovers are set to hit the dock in LA today. I'm so excited about that. And then they'll be shipped here to Arizona, where I will get my paws on them. And so anyway, I also want to let you guys know before I get going on this topic that I do answer questions at the end of my videos. And today I've got 3 that I want to talk to you about. And especially today, I have one that is so heartfelt. And it's going to be hard to read, but it's so pertinent to this conversation, this topic. It fits right in. This is going to be a longer video. I think it'll be longer. Maybe it'll take the regular amount of time that it normally does, but a lot of important stuff to talk about in this one today. So let's dive into it. So the question that I have for a lot of illustrators out there is, why do you want to work for a big publisher like HarperCollins, for instance? Have you identified the reasons, And I think a lot of people would say, obviously, money, right? The fact that they're going to pay you, that it is a paying gig. It's a job, right? So money is definitely one of those things on the list. Another one would be distribution. You do your job as an illustrator. They produce the book and on their dime, and then they have distribution channels where they can get that book out to different stores and theoretically get it out into the marketplace, and they can move around. If when I get my books, they're going to land in probably 2 pallets, I've calculated, and they're going to be sitting out in my driveway, and then I have to distribute those books. So that's something that you definitely get from a publisher. And then marketing, right? So a lot of artists want the publisher to market their book, and some publishers do market books, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. The one that I think that we all want, but we don't really talk about that much, is relevance. Okay, relevance. So when a publisher contacts you and says, "Hey, I want to have you illustrate this manuscript from this other author, and I want to pay you to do it," or "I want to buy your story and that you've written and that you're going to illustrate, and I want you to illustrate it, and I want to pay you up front some money against the royalties," because that's how it works, right? I want to pay you to do that, to do the very thing that you want to do. And what it does is, you're able to go to your parents and say, "Guess what, Mom and Dad? I got a contract from a publisher. They're going to pay me to do the work that I've been, preparing to do, that I want to do. I am going." It's a vote of confidence from a company where they're saying, "We think we can make money from your ideas and from your creativity and from your hard work and from your labor. And you're good enough that we think we can make money off of you." That's a huge vote of confidence. And what it does is it gives you relevance. You can take that and leverage it. You can give talks based on that, right? You can go out there and be the expert. You can do school visits more easily, I think, when you have a book that's published through a national publisher. I would like to tell those who are maybe watching one of my videos for the first time that I have over 30 books, like Bonaparte Falls Apart, written by Marjorie Kyler, published by Penguin Random House. I have over 30 books published with major publishers. That is what I've mostly done in my career. So I know my way around. I mean, I've worked with Scholastic, I've worked with Simon Schuster, HarperCollins. And for me, relevance is probably the biggest thing that a publisher can give you that you can't really get on your own in self-publishing. I mean, there are certain people in the world that are never going to value your contributions as a self-publisher like they would if it came from a big publisher. So in some people's eyes, you will never be relevant if you're self-publishing. For other people, they don't care. And where I'm at right now in my career is I value money and the freedom to create what I want to create over everything else. I mean, I've already gotten the relevance, right? So I can leverage that. So when up and comers, ask me for advice and stuff, yeah, that's the one thing that you really can't get on your own. In fact, you can't get in SCBWI. There's a group of published illustrators. I can't remember what the status is, but there's a sort of a status in Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators organization that if you're self-published, you can't get. You can only get if you're published through a national publisher, and they even disqualify some small ones. But here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that publishers are not really good at picking winners. Sure, they pick people, right? They pick people and they say, we're going to pay you this money. But what a lot of people don't understand is that the big publishers have, at different houses, it's a different ratio, but it's somewhere around 8-1, 9-1, 10-1, losers to winners. In other words, they have to publish 8 or 9 children's books like this in order to have one that pays for all of them, because those 8 or 9, they all lose money. It's very expensive to publish a children's book in the traditional publishing with a traditional publisher. They have a huge staff. They have huge overhead in their physical office space, in their warehouse space for books. They have sales teams. They have editors, they have art directors, they have creative directors, they have all kinds of people working, secretarial positions, mailroom. They've got the whole thing. They've got to pay this huge amount of overhead. Not to mention the fact that, paying for printing the books is expensive. And so when they publish a book, there's estimates that some children's books cost them anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to publish a book. Well, with their model, they have, if one book wins the Caldecott, or if one book hits the New York Times bestseller and sells 50 to 100,000 copies, it will pay, or 200 or 300 or 400,000 copies, it will pay for all of those losers. And if you take, we just lost Ian Falconer last week, who was the author illustrator of the Olivia books, the Cute Little Pig. And that book series was worth many, many millions. I wouldn't be surprised if the total Olivia franchise, including all the merchandising and everything, exceeded $500 million, maybe even closer to $1 billion. It was a huge, huge moneymaker for the publisher. I believe that was Simon Schuster. Think of how many books they can have that fail under that. So why do I bring that up? Well, the big publishers aren't good at picking winners. That tells me that you and I are probably just as good at picking a winning idea and putting it out into the marketplace. The fact that you could be sitting on a really good idea, but the publishers aren't picking you, aren't choosing you, one, it drives you kind of crazy because you have a good idea. And two, but the fact that they're not picking you means that the market doesn't get to decide whether your idea was good or not. So, there are companies that have made plenty of bad ideas, right? Over the years. These are big companies that have, access to many, many millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, and yet they still can put out stupid ideas. They also put out good ideas. So, in my opinion, it's kind of silly that, you're considered relevant, or you gain all this relevance if they pick you, and you don't if they don't. I think times are really changing, and I think that the publishers are kind of helping us move more towards self-publishing. And by that I mean the books that they're picking today are much different than the books that they picked in the past. And here's something that I have never shared with anybody on our 3-Point Perspective podcast. And I haven't shared it here on YouTube, but I'm going to today. And that is, I don't really believe that the big publishers want to work with me anymore. And the reason for that is I have the wrong brand of politics, plain and simple. And they have made it clear that they are looking to promote artists, authors and artists who are actively seeking to promote a progressive agenda. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in promoting books that are fun and books that tell a strong moral, have a good moral message. And that is definitely my opinion. If that message is moral or not, your morals could be different than mine. I understand that. But they have chosen to pick one brand of their morality, which I do not agree with. They have kind of forced me into going more into the self-publishing route. Those of you who have been following me for a while probably remember me releasing this book on Kickstarter, What They Don't Teach in Art School, a couple of years ago. And, this was me making my own business book for artists to teach artists how to thrive, to teach artists how to sell their own projects and basically self-publish their own games, their own books, their own comics, whatever it is, their own dreams, and to get it out into the marketplace. I sold just under 10,000 copies of this. I was able to pocket 6 figures from this. I've never been paid that much from a traditional publisher, okay? And now I'm going to do it with Pickleball Paul, and this is going to be at least a 5-book series. And I'm going to prove to myself and to you guys and to anyone who cares to listen what is possible in self-publishing. Now, some people have said, well, Will, and they've said that on comments on this video series, well, yeah, you can do it because, you've got a track record and you've got an audience and you've got some sense of notoriety, and you're gonna leverage that. There's some truth to that. I'm gonna leverage that. I'm estimating that I will get between 200 and 500 sales from my audience for this book, which is nowhere near enough. I mean, I've got 5,000 books coming from China in a week or two. The reason for that is that this market that I chose to work in pickleball, the people in pickleball have no idea who Will Terry is, okay? And I have to market to them. They do not know who I am. When I marketed What They Don't Teach in Art School, I sold this to my group mostly, and then I got a lot of leverage from the Kickstarter platform. But yeah, so this is a totally different thing in children's books for me to try to make more money, and I'm going to make more money than I would get through one of my publishers. I am going to work a lot harder for it, but what I hope over time is that I will make 5 or 10 times more money that will more than compensate for the amount of extra work that I'll be putting into this book series to market it. If you're interested in my plans on marketing it, on all the sales stats, the gross receipts versus the net and the profit, follow this video series. I'm sharing it all. I've already shared my expenses thus far, and I will be making an update video on that. I think I'm about $15,000 in the hole right now, and I sold my first book the other day, and it was a pre-sale, and we're getting ready to do pre-launch pretty soon. But the big message that I have for you guys is that that things have really changed in publishing, and things have changed for self-publishing in such a positive way that in the past we really had to go through the route of traditional publishing. It really wasn't an option for doing anything on your own. Now you can print for free with Amazon. I believe Ingram also lets you publish for free, the big book wholesaler. But yeah, you can upload your book to Amazon and they will print on demand So you can get into publishing for free. Now, a lot of people will say, well, yeah, but that just because you put your book on Amazon doesn't mean it's going to sell. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And a lot of people do. They throw a book up on Amazon and they get 0 sales, or they get 1 or 2 sales from their family members, and then that's it. Yeah, you have to have a marketing plan. And I wrote this book for the market of pickleball because I knew I was going to be able to find the people that would love this book, and we are. And I'm going to show you how I'm doing that. So actually, the marketing started on Pickleball Paul before I ever wrote the first word of the book, because I'm publishing to a group that I'm going to be able to then easily share this book with, and who will, I really believe, fall in love with it and buy it and share it with their family. Your work has to be great if you're going to do this, okay? The writing has to be really good, and the idea has to be good, and the illustration has to be good, okay? And probably the idea has to be better than the illustrations. And case in point would be the work of Scott Adams, or the work of Scott Inman, who does, or what's his first name? His last name is Inman, Matthew Inman, the guy who does the oatmeal. His ideas are way better than his art. Okay, so the ideas that you have need to be really good. Okay, and if you do that and you identify a market, you can put your book in front of that market and sell to those people. If my publisher, when they did Bonaparte, I think they printed 10,000 books, and I'm getting royalties on this now. Okay, but a lot of the books that I've illustrated, I didn't get any royalties on. Okay, and the reason I didn't get any royalties is because it didn't sell very well. So they publish, let's say, 5,000 to 10,000 books on the first run. If they don't sell them all, then you don't get any royalties, and you actually don't. I mean, you just get the advance. Sometimes my advances way in the early days were, like $10,000, $15,000, and now I'm getting more like $25,000 for an advance. If I sell the 5,000 books that I have coming from China, that is going to be $125,000 gross. Now, how much of that is going to be profit, I'm not exactly sure yet, but I can reprint it too when I sell those 5,000. And also, I'm going to be getting the sales that are on Amazon, because the book is on Amazon right now. And that's where this softcover version comes in. But another little known secret that's a negative for traditional publishing is when you have books that don't do what they call earn out, okay, meaning they sell out the first run, which they then go into royalties. Usually they base it on that first run, where they sell enough books to pay the illustrators royalty for them to start getting royalties. That's called earning out, right? Where let's say you got $20,000 and they sold enough books at 5%, which goes to the illustrator, to where all those little 5% royalties added up to $20,000. And now every book after that, you get a royalty. When a book doesn't earn out, it's a blight on your record. And whenever a publisher, or let's say an art director, is looking to hire you, and so they have a manuscript, and they say, well, we want to hire, they want to hire, Will Terry, whatever. And then they go into a sales meeting, and they have to, the art director has to justify to the sales staff that you're viable, that you're a good bet. And so if they bring up your last 2 or 3 books, and if they didn't earn out, then they have to be able to say, okay, here's the thing. I know that his books didn't earn out, but I really think that on this book, he'll do really well. And a lot of times the sales staff will go, you know what? We'd rather you choose an illustrator who has really high sales, because they'll just say, we don't know if that's why it didn't do well or why it did do well, but let's not take any chances. And so a lot of times, if you have bad sales records, that follow you around from publisher to publisher, and they can all look them up from whatever publisher you work with, you'll get passed over for that. So you could be working in the industry for a long time. And my last book, Bonaparte Plays Ball, which is based on baseball, did not do well at all. And I think it's the reason why it kind of killed that series is, and I think a lot of kids aren't really into baseball, and maybe it was the wrong subject matter. A baseball book, the first one went from a pure Halloween type of a theme. The second one went into baseball, and for whatever reason, it didn't do well. Well, that's a blight on my record. Okay. Now, some people might even say in the comments, well, that's why you're not getting hired. It's not so much the politics. No, I know it's the politics. I'm very vocal on Facebook. And there are a lot of art directors that won't talk to me anymore because I have the wrong brand of politics. And that's fine. I'm going to thrive. I'm going to win. And I'm going to do it on my own. And I'm going to make more money than I did with the publishers. And I'm going to share that with you as we get going. So what is the big myth in the publishing, in the traditional publishing world? To me, is that you need them. I don't think you do. I think the world has really changed. We didn't have Amazon. We didn't have the ability to distribute. We didn't have social media. We didn't have ways of getting the word out like we do today. Today is a different world. We have technologies that will help us market. We have technologies that will help us create, that will help us to produce. I mean, when I sell a book on Amazon, one of the biggest problems with distribution is that when I sold What They Don't Teach in Art School, this book cost more to ship to Australia and Europe than it did for backers to buy this book, and that, rightly so, made a lot of my backers really angry. And with Pickleball Paul, they can get this version, the softcover version, in their country, and if they're on Prime shipping, they can get it for free. So that's a huge game changer for distribution, and that's just a technology thing. That Amazon wasn't here, now they are, and now you have access to a distribution channel that you didn't have before. Now's the time for creators, I'm telling you. And so let me go through some of these questions before I finish up this video. There's a couple of really good ones. I'm going to read the short ones first and then the long one that is really heartfelt. So the first one is, I'm loving the series of videos. Well, it's helped me see what's possible, so I'm going to go ahead with my dream of making a swim coaching guide to swimming. I'd like to offer a poster to my kids, just as you did, and I talked about that in a previous video. Is it possible for you to share who you have printing your posters and how much they are per unit? So if you're really serious about getting posters printed, I'm protecting my print broker. I got it through the same print broker. I'm protecting her because the last time I gave her information, she had 10 people contact her, and she went through the hassle of writing up 10 different estimates, and none of them ended up using her, even though she was giving these amazing prices. I think they just wanted to see how much something would cost. She doesn't want to be used that way. So if you're really serious and you have the money and you're ready to pull the trigger, I guarantee you she will give you a really good price on posters, and probably beat just about any price you can find. She gives really great prices. Put another comment under this video that you really want her contact information, and I'll get it to you. But you need to be ready to buy. Okay, the next question by Craig: are there many other writers in the industry, or do most of them illustrate also? Are there only writers? In what he's saying, are there authors who don't illustrate? And how do they get into the industry? I'll put a link in the description below for a video that I did that will actually answer that question. And now for the really long, heartfelt one. I'm just going to read this because it's very. I think that a lot of you guys are going to relate to this. Okay. And I'm going to withhold the name because I don't know if he wants me to use his name, even though he did put a comment on the last video about this, or a couple videos ago. I studied visual arts with a concentration in painting at the University of, and I'm going to withhold that name. I remember you said I could email you an image of my work, so I'll attach it in this email. As you can see, it's just one image. I'm notorious for throwing things away. I'd like to ask you about the life of an artist. I really just need some guidance, as my school has been zero help since I graduated. I graduated in 2018 with no prospects for a career in the arts. In the interim, I took care of physically, mentally disabled people for 2 years, and for the past 3 years, I've been working as a night shift janitor at a rubber factory. The associates I made in college all left for the coast after graduation, and I stayed behind in Indiana to be close to my mom and siblings, but here I feel so very alone and useless. I really don't know where I fit into the art world. I've been on ArtStation and looked for jobs, and the skills of a traditional painter are just not valuable to today's careers. So, and the image that he gave me is a kind of an academic painting, head study painting, and done really nice. So think, academic head study, traditional painting. I went to college hoping I could work on movies or video games, but after looking at the work of some of the animation and illustration students at my college, I decided the studio art program had the best fundamentals. So I studied the fundamentals, but I never knew what to do after college. While in college, none of my professors could give me any concrete advice on a career. So I worked on the assignments and half-heartedly hoped I could be an illustrator like Carla Ortiz, and maybe someday get to work on Marvel movies like she does. At least that's the goal I had to keep myself going. While at college, I worked and studied as a janitor. Studied as a janitor. Then I interned at a gallery and primarily did janitorial work. During these times, I'd meet with my professors and talk about dropping out or my career prospects. I'd be told something about regretting dropping out, so I stayed in school. But it seems that despite studying painting, I was being prepared for a career as a janitor. I rarely go on LinkedIn, but when I do, I feel such great sense of failure. Everyone is at a studio working on a set or doing graphic design work or doing something else art related, and I'm here cleaning toilets in Indiana. I don't post on LinkedIn because I know I'm a failure. It seems like everyone else is out there making things happen, and I'm stuck in my mom's basement at 27 years old, wondering what happened with my life. Everyone around me here in Indiana just works at a factory. All of the men in my family work in factories. I wanted to be an illustrator or work on movies or something, but here I am working in a factory too. Oftentimes I feel so lonely and useless that I'm on the verge of tears, and often really I don't see the point of living this life. I wanted to work at Marvel Studios, and instead I'm spinning my wheels in Indiana. I don't have a portfolio to show, and for the last 2 years, I haven't really even painted because it just seems like a waste of time. I really don't know what to do anymore. Anyway, I'm sorry for venting. Thank you for your time. Okay. Wow. Now, the first thing I want you to know is that there are so many people in your situation. And I know that you're looking at the ones who left and who are doing great. But I want you to know that most in college programs like you went through are doing something completely not art related. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I think that there are groups of people who are very happy in the career that they chose to go into that wasn't art related. And I think there are a lot of people in your situation. And for many different reasons, most don't end up working in an art job like animation or freelance illustrating. And when I went through school I finished. I never graduated. I finished in 92. That's going to date me. They told me when I first started the program at BYU. They said, maybe 5% of you are going to make it in illustration in here. At least they were honest about that. Like you really need to work hard because there's only room for 5% of you. Well, there were 20 people in my class, and I wasn't great at math, but I did know that 5% meant one person. Exactly one person. And in my class, there was actually 2 of us that made it for a while, and then the other one, I don't think he's doing much with it anymore. So I think I'm the only one. At the time, I thought I should switch majors because I was like, what are the chances that I'll be the only one? This is ridiculous. This is stupid. I should get out of here. So number one, I want you to know that you're so not alone. And one of the biggest problems is that we were all freaking programmed to get a job, okay? We were programmed to go out and that, you go in school, you go to the first school and you do well, then you go to the second school and you try to do well, then you go to the third school and you really need to do well there so you can get into the fourth school or the college that you really want. And then if you do really well there, then guess what? The heavens are open and this magical job is going to happen for you. And unfortunately, in the arts, that happens the least. If you're going into accounting, there's a much better chance that there's a job for you at the end of the day than if you go into illustration. You went into illustration. It was a 5%. Maybe now it's a 1 or 2% chance of getting a job in the industry. When I got out, Hallmark was still a thing, and Hallmark came and recruited and interviewed, and they just didn't like me. They wanted someone that had like multiple styles, and I had one style, and they were like, psh. So that one flew by. I had high hopes of getting hired at Hallmark, and that didn't work out. So you're not alone, but I feel you've been given really bad advice. And that advice is that there's a job for you. And there's not. There's not a job out there. In fact, to make it in freelance where you're really in freelance, so the job is where they say, come in here, we'll feed you and we'll take care of you and we'll give you benefits and we'll give you health insurance and all that. And that's great if you can get that in animation, as long as you don't get laid off, right? And ruin your finances, which happens to a ton of people in animation. It's not all roses in animation. I've made videos about that where I've had 5 animators. When I used to teach art at UVU, I had 5 animators that worked at Disney and that worked at Warner Brothers and stuff like that back in my class because they were tired of getting laid off and they were finally just done with it and they wanted to go get their master's degree so they could teach. Okay, 5. So that happens too. So just because you get the job. So really, now a lot of people are going to be watching this video and going, well, why am I even trying? Why am I even in this business? The reason that you're trying, the reason that you're in this business or trying to be in this business is because you're an artist. As artists, we love making art. And we have a certain degree of narcissism where we really want the world to value what we do. We want the world to see our creations, to see what we've done, and we want to share it with the world, right? Okay. What I'm here to tell you is you can do that, but you're going to have to do it on your own, okay? There was a TikTok the other day. Look it up. Jason Alexander, the guy who played George in Seinfeld, who said this very thing. He said this to actors. He said, the days of going to acting school and getting a job on a set, on a gig, on a show are pretty much over. The only people that get hired now are the people that are going out there and making their own short movie, their own film, their own show, their own YouTube show, their own something to where they get noticed and they get hired because of the experience of doing that. Okay? So his advice to up-and-coming actors is go make your own movie. My advice to you is go make the thing that you want to make. What do you want to do? The illustration you showed looks nothing like animation. Okay? If animation is what you want to do, then start making animations. If painting figurative work is what you want to do, then paint figurative work and figure out how to sell it. There are so many ways out there right now that you can make a career out of doing what you want to do. I have maybe I should make a video of this again. I have a list of what I call artist creators, right? Artist entrepreneurs, artists that have made the thing on their own and become very famous and made a lot of money doing it. Carol Marine is one of them that I would mention. I've mentioned her before. You can look her up. She did these painting a day things. She loved painting in oils, loves painting in oils. She does a painting a day. She posts it. She sells almost every single one of them on her site. And she does workshops. She advertises workshops. I looked the other day, her workshops sold out again. So she gets flown out to different cities. They put her up in a hotel. They pay her a really nice amount of money for the weekend. And she gets to show people how she paints and paints along with them. And then she sells the painting that she made in the workshop. So she's doing exactly what she wants. She created a business out of it. You're not going to get hired. Those days are over. There used to be a big market for illustrators in the car industry in Detroit. Hundreds, if not thousands, of illustrators hired to go and draw cars. That's gone. That doesn't exist anymore. Markets come and go. Right now is the time for you to make the thing that you want to make. The options are there. The technology's there. In every facet of art. If you were a musician in the past, you had to save thousands of dollars for studio time. Now anybody can record in their home with the software that they run on their iMac. I mean, it's amazing. You get a few mics, and you can create a sound studio in your home that you couldn't afford to do a few decades ago. Now is the time for artists to go on their own and to do it on their own. You have to somehow deprogram the idea that someone's going to take care of you. They're not. You have to take care of yourself. And the ones that do, the ones that have, will make so much more money than you'll ever be paid in a job, and you won't be laid off. And no one can tell you that you're not viable. No one can tell you that they don't like your idea. I mean, imagine being J.K. Rowling and writing Harry Potter and having it turned down once. We talk about it being turned down 13 times. It's easy to say 13 times. It's really hard. Imagine you send off your manuscript. You wait, you get a rejection letter. You send it to a different publisher. You wait, you get a rejection letter times 13 times. And that's Harry Potter. So yeah, if you have a great idea and you send it to a publisher and they turn it down, a lot of people just walk away and they go, well, I tried. I know someone who had their manuscript turned down 57 times, I think it was. And it was an author that I worked with on Rockstar Santa, and I wish I could remember her name, but you can look it up, Rockstar Santa, through Scholastic, and the author of that book, Krauss, I think is her last name, had a book. One of her first books turned down 57 times. So even the publishers aren't good at picking winners. Go out there and make the thing that you want to make. I'll end on this. Do not subscribe unless you want to see more videos like this. I know this one ran really long, but I felt like this person deserved the best answer that I could give them. I really feel for you, and if you're feeling really depressed, I would also encourage you to go get help, to seek help. But you don't need that. Let me finish on one more little quick anecdotal story. In 2007, my wife got sick with an autoimmune disease. She actually got sick before that, but in 2008 she couldn't teach anymore. We lost her income. We were reliant on her teacher salary. I lost my home. I had my home foreclosed on, and my truck repossessed. Okay, I was in for a father of 3 boys, for a husband, that is one of the worst things that a man can go through, is being the breadwinner and then not being able to provide, not being able to make enough money. And we were dumb. We spent more than we made. We were typical. We were living in a house that was too big, with a mortgage that was too much, and spending too much money on things we didn't need. I had to reinvent myself. And the way that I reinvented myself to pull us out of that, and I went through some heavy depression. Some depression where I felt exactly like you, where the life didn't even seem worth living. I was extremely depressed. And what I decided to do was to start a business. And that's when I started Folio Academy, which later became svslearn.com. And I'll have a link to svslearn.com. That's where we teach illustrators how to be illustrators online for a fraction of what you pay when you go to an art school. It's like a couple $100 a year for all the classes that you would get if you were in art school, a full curriculum. And that was born out of that despair. So I can tell you, my friend, that out of the ashes, you can fly like the phoenix. And I invented little heroes after that to continue pulling ourselves out. We bought a house, and now I own my home free and clear. And that is only in, we're talking from 2008 to 2023. It's not a long time to go from that far down to as far up as I am now, and a really good start on my retirement. So anyway, don't subscribe if you don't want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you on the next one.